Well, hello. Looks like I am live. Well, let me take a look here. Yeah, I'm still pretty alive. I haven't died yet or anything like that, so I guess I am live and I'm here tonight. And how has everybody's week been? We're here doing the weekly wrap up and review where I'll spend about the first 5 or 6 minutes just chatting with people, and then we're going to get into the evening's material. And I'm really excited about the material we're going to be covering and going over tonight. And we're going to be talking about how to build trust. And what I do here every week is I come here and that I am, well, 13 years ago, I transitioned my monogamous marriage of 27 years. And my wife and I, we opened our marriage and we started living a non-monogamous life. And so I went through that transition. But you see, life is a constant series of transitions. Right now, I'm transitioning my life where I'm going from having an income where it's dependent upon my time, like most people, where they trade their time for money. And I'm transitioning that to where I'm building an online passive sustainable income so that my income will continue to come into me. Doesn't matter where I'm at in the world, as long as I have occasional use of an internet connection and have a computer that'll hook up to it, and it's a fast enough and good enough internet connection to allow me to do the work that I would need to be doing, because there's a lot of places in the world that don't have a very strong internet connection. And for instance, for me to make a video, upload a video onto YouTube, or to do a broadcast like tonight where I'm live streaming, there's a lot of places that they may have an internet connection, but it's not going to work out for something like this at all. And so, that certainly means that, I can't go off to, some remote place for months on end, unless things are really well taken care of and I can just leave everything behind me. But anyway, so I'm in my own transition right now, and as I started in this process, I realized that it's really a lot of the same things that my audience and people that I'm wanting to guide and help and be an encouragement for in moving their life into more of a what I call a liberated life, and that's where their life is either moving from monogamy to non-monogamy, where the non-monogamy is ethical and consensual, because there's people out there, a lot of people that I come into contact with, that are living monogamous lives, but it's really secretive because not even their wife or husband knows about it, or boyfriend or girlfriend knows about it. They're living in this non-monogamous life, but it's not what I call ethical and consensual. And I don't want to be a judge for you if you're living that kind of a life, but I do want to be a shining light for you and say that, you really don't need to live that kind of a life. You're creating your own dependency, your own limitations and restrictions. You're creating your own misery and in living that kind of a life. And you can live such a freer life and such a more enjoyable life in creating for yourself a life that is ethical and consensually non-monogamous. And one of the things that I then want to be helping people with is to living what I call an elf life. An elf life is a life that is easy, is liberated, and fun. Now, in talking about living a liberated life, we really focus on three very distinct areas, because they're all interrelated. And these are things that I learned when I became and started living my non-monogamous life, about how important these things are. And so one of those things is obviously our relationships and sex life. My sex life is what made me where I am today, where I came to a place in my marriage after 25 years of monogamy where I just, I wasn't going to go out and be dishonest with my wife. I just wasn't part of who I am. And so I wasn't going to go out and cheat or sneak around or anything like that. And so that meant that I was either going to have to, if I wanted to have the kind of a satisfying sex life that I want to have, then I was going to have to either figure out a way of opening my marriage or get a divorce. And so my wife and I took a 2-year process and working through opening our marriage, and that's then what we did. And so our relationships with sex is one of the areas that we work to liberate our lives. And another area is in our health and wellness, in that we create dependence on the doctors and the medical systems that really don't focus on getting us well. They just focus on getting us dependent. And so there's so much of that that I've learned over the years from my own health and wellness, where I've been able to liberate my own life and have a real impact on other people as well, and liberate their life and helping them to understand more about wellness instead of having a healthcare system that's really a dependent care system, because it creates dependency out of us. And so I help people to learn more about wellness and liberate themselves from that dependent care system. And then the last area then is also in our wealth and our work and wealth. And so that's kind of where I'm working on right now, is liberating myself from my work and wealth. And so that's something that I come here and talk to you openly about, and I'll be continuing to share more and more about this, because my desire right now is by 2025 to help 1,000 people living ethically and consensually non-monogamous life have also that liberation financially, just like I am working through to liberate myself financially right now. And I'm creating, as I'm doing this, I'm creating systems so that it'll be much easier and much faster for others to be able to take and follow along and work through and have their financial liberation as well. But I want to help 1,000 people to be able to have an income that where they can say, hey, yeah, if I can make $5,000 a month and just have that coming in, like as if a Social Security check or a retirement pension check or something like that, then yeah, my life would be totally different. And so that you don't have the dependency on a paycheck anymore. And so we help you to liberate your life from that. And so that's kind of what we do here every week. We talk about these things, but and then I always have a topic that I get into, and we're going to get into that topic now. And so let me just introduce myself. My name is Non-Monogamous Mark, and I am right now in my home with my girlfriend, Chris, in Seattle, Washington. And this is the city where I grew up in. But then year ago, I guess it was just a little over a year and a half ago, sold my house. And so then Chris and I moved into this apartment where she lives here all the time. And then I have a partner in Ventura, California as well. And she has an apartment, and I live part of my time with her. And so I go back and forth, and we very soon will be going back to California, and have enjoyed my time now here with Chris. And so that's part of then my life, is being non-monogamous, having multiple partners, and that just had a conversation with Chris, is that I'm responsible for the satisfaction and pleasure in my own life, as she is as well for her life. And we have to be asking ourselves, what can I do for my relationship and sex life that's going to give me more satisfaction and pleasure? What can I do for my health and my wellness that's going to give me more satisfaction and pleasure? What can I do with my work and my wealth that's going to give me more satisfaction and pleasure? And so when we constantly be asking ourselves those three simple little questions there, then we find ourselves, that helps us to guide and direct our life. And so then each week when I come on here, I come here to bring a topic and a conversation. And so like I said, we're going to be talking about how to build trust tonight. And so let me go ahead now and switch over. Oh, I forgot to mention. So I'm Non-Monogamous Mark. I mentioned that. You see on the screen there, it says thehomenudist.com. And that one of the things that I'm working to liberate myself financially with is an e-commerce business, and where I'm building some websites to, help people to be able to not have to go to a mall or to a store to do shopping with, but to do more shopping online. And, it's a big shift that's going on right now. And so thehomenudist.com is the website that I'm building. It's not done yet. You can go there and kind of check it out, but it's not done yet. But more than that, myself doing that, I'm going to build myself 5 to 7 websites, and actually going to have I'm hiring a virtual assistant in the Philippines to help me work with me on these things. And I'm going to create a program so that ethically and consensually non-monogamous people that want to have the financial liberation as well, that they'll be able to take and create these e-commerce sites. If you have 5 sites that are making just $2,000 a month, now that's a ridiculously small amount because each site could be making $50,000 a month. But I try to keep my objectives very relevant and very real. And so we've got 5 sites making $2,000 a month, and you got $10,000 worth of profit coming in. And certainly then that can be an income that will liberate many people. And so anyway, I'll be more about that at a later time as I roll out that program next year for people that want to develop their own financial liberation. But in the meantime, I come here every week and kind of show you a little bit more about my progress. And so I'm going to go ahead and now switch screens. I have a nonprofit association that I started called Non-Monogamous Lifestyles Association. And so I kind of have a combination of a for-profit enterprise and my e-commerce business, and I got a combination then of my nonprofit business as well. And with my nonprofit business, it's really where my passion is in helping people to thrive in living an ethically and consensually non-monogamous life. And there are 12 to 15 million of us in the United States alone, and statistics indicate that there could be, by the end of this decade, could be 30 to 40 million of us, because there's a lot of people out there who would like to live our life if it was just more socially acceptable. Kind of like what the LGBT population found, that when it became much more socially acceptable and they didn't have to all live in the closet, then a lot more people that they ever dreamed were out there. They're now living an LGBT life. And I think that that's what's going to happen before the end of this decade for people living an ethically and consensually non-monogamous life. But let me go ahead and switch my screen here and get to my notes so that I can get on to topic here. Okay, so as we said, then this is the weekly wrap-up video report. And it's all about making a transition and thriving and living an ethically and consensually non-monogamous life that you create and that you love the most. And so part of this then is 3 things we try to wrap up and put together, and that is to have a life where you have more sex with more people more often. And then you want to create a magnetic elf life. That's a life that is easy, liberated, and fun. And that'd be a life where you're having more satisfaction and pleasure, and instead of going the opposite direction and having less satisfaction and less pleasure. In fact, that becomes really the test to ask yourself, is what I'm doing right now, is it creating more satisfaction and pleasure in my life, or is it creating less satisfaction and pleasure in my life? And if you find that it's creating less satisfaction and pleasure, it's really then the universe speaking to you. It's kind of like knocking on your door and saying, knock, knock, pay attention here. You're heading in a direction that's going to give you less satisfaction and less pleasure, and that's not where you want to go. Instead, then you have the opportunity to turn things in your life and get them headed in a direction to increase your satisfaction and pleasure in your life. And, that's where I was then finally when I was in my 40s. And I just realized that, I was a virgin when I got married. And my whole life, I had never had a consistently satisfying sex life. It was something that my wife and I talked about before we got married, that it was something that we both wanted. And it was something that we both worked at to have being married. We spent over $50,000 trying to figure out what our problem was over a 25-year period of time. And why wasn't our sex life giving us all the satisfaction and pleasure that we had hoped it would? And it was giving us more frustration. My wife, she felt that there's something wrong with her, that she was broken because she never wanted to get turned on sexually by me. And I just kind of figured I just had no idea of knowing what I just wasn't doing the right things to turn her on. And so I wanted to try harder, but she didn't want me to try harder. So we had this conflict constantly brewing between us. And so finally, then that conflict came to a place where one day I said, I know this goes against the church, because we were very heavily involved in church. I know this goes against the church, but we've really tried everything else that I can think of. Maybe we need to try where you have sex with someone else and I have sex with someone else. Oh my gosh, how terrible that was, you know? So I'm not going to get any more deeply into that story right now. There's I got videos on that and all, but you see, that was the turning point for me. And that was 13 years ago, and it's been lovely, wonderful ever since. Yes, it has, like anything, it has its ups and its downs, but I always come back to this little test. Am I increasing my satisfaction and pleasure in my life, or is my satisfaction and pleasure decreasing? Is the satisfaction and pleasure in my health and wellness increasing or decreasing? Am I more able or less able? That's why I lost since my turn into, I mean, I was 265 pounds when I peaked out there in my monogamous life. And so I've lost a lot of weight, and I still got weight to lose, but again, it's just turning it, getting it going the right direction, because nothing happens overnight. It doesn't have to happen quickly. And that's been, we're in week 19 here of this weekly wrap-up video report. And I started out saying that I'm given this 2 years to transition my life financially, to be able to liberate my life financially. And that 2 years is what took me to transition my marriage from monogamy to non-monogamy. Now, for other people, it only takes them 2 weeks, because the couple just has, some conversations, and they say, well, yeah, let's go and give this a try. Other people, that they get stuck, and it seems like they just never make any progress, not even after 2 years, And that's where I'm here to help you to keep making some progress by telling you about my own transition and helping you to apply that to the transition that you can go through, and transitioning the things that are important in your life, so that you can live a life that gives you more satisfaction and more pleasure, where you're having more sex with more people more often, and you're having ethically, consensually non-monogamous relationships. And so let's go on now then and get into the topic for tonight, and that is, like I mentioned then, and how to build trust. But in getting there, I don't know what's going on here with this one. It's not tuning in very well, but maybe I'll just, there we go. I've got an assignment for you this week, and I'm going to start having you do this assignment on a weekly basis. But or I'll have an assignment for you, and so we're going to start out with that. And this assignment for you here today, and for tonight and this week, as you're watching this video, if you're watching it live, or if you're watching it just on YouTube. And the first part of the assignment is that if you are in a relationship with someone that you are regularly having sex with, or if you're in a long-term committed relationship with someone that you're not regularly having sex with, because I know there's a lot of people out there that are in a long-term committed relationship, but they don't have regular sex. So whatever way it is that you're in a relationship there with someone, and maybe you did have sex at one point and then it stopped, or maybe you're still having sex regularly. But I want you this week to have 2 conversations with that person based on the material that I'm covering tonight. So take yourself some notes of the material I'm covering tonight, and then this week have 2 conversations about this topic, okay, of how to build trust. And then the other part, now maybe you're a single person, you're not in a relationship with anybody, and that you're not regularly having sex with anybody, and so if that's kind of where you're at, you're a completely free agent. I mean, I'm single, I'm not married, but yet I've got 2 committed relationships that I'm in, so I'm what I call available, and I'm not single, but I'm not married. But I am available, and that if someone were to come along that I wanted to date and have a relationship with and have sex with, that I'm a free agent. And so, but I'm more fitting the first category though, not the second category. So the second category though is that you're single and you're completely a free agent. I want you to take notes on tonight's topic for yourself and how you want to apply these things so that you live your life by them. Have a conversation and then have conversations with people that you're interested in getting a relationship with. And this week, then, have two conversations with either someone that you would be interested in a relationship with, or maybe just a friend, a buddy, or maybe you have a friend that's in a relationship that you know both of them as a couple, and you go over to the man and the woman's place and just say, hey, I really been thinking about these things and like to, just have this conversation. Maybe we can talk this. I mean, one of the wonderful things I know a girlfriend I once had that every Friday night she would take, and this is before she got in her relationship with me, but for about 2 years, every Friday night, that she would get a bottle of wine and she'd take it over to this couple's house and they'd sit and they'd drink her bottle of wine, plus they would provide a bottle of wine. And so the three of them would drink 2 bottles of wine and they'd have these conversations that would go on hour after hour. And it was really, truly about the conversation because, according to her anyway, and I believe this, that the couple was very monogamous and there was never any sex that she had with them. But so how to build trust, and so in talking about this, that I want you to understand that there's the aspect of having trust in your relationships and sex life, and there's also having trust in the work and wealth part of your life as well. And that like I said, that my transition that I'm going through in building my financially liberated life is the same transition. A lot of times, a lot of things are very similar than as when I went through having a sexually liberated life. And so, and a lot of that then has to do with trust. And so, we want to start out by asking, really thinking of trust in this way, because you see, all of our relationships, they always come down to a transaction. And trust makes it possible for you to have that transaction. And what you're basically asking, what I asked my wife 13 years ago is, and she's looking at me, we're having this conversation. Can I trust that if I give you blank, an open relationship, I will get blank? So it's a transaction. There's always something that somebody wants from that transaction. Maybe for you and your relationship, it's where, like my wife, what it came down to is, can I trust that if I give you the opportunity to go out and have sex with other people, then I'll get the opportunity just not to have sex? That's what it was for her. She just really just didn't want to have sex until she saw how it was working out really good for me, and decided that she wanted to try having some relationships with other people as well. And so then she kind of jumped into the non-monogamous world as well. But so it's always this, same thing when when you got two single people doing this dance and seeing if they want to have sex. Well, can I trust that if I give you blank, that I'm going to get blank? And so there's always that interaction going on. When two people come together in a relationship or a romantic relationship, there's always that same process. So it comes down to a transaction. And having an established, trusted relationship enables you to make a transaction, be it in a relationship for love, sex, employment, wealth creation, or anything else. But it takes that as having an established, trusted relationship. Now, that's really what it's all about on doing business with any place you go somewhere to buy something. You may buy something once and find that, like, for instance, if I go to a store to buy produce and find that their produce is terrible, I may try it once and find that their produce is not any good, then I'm not going to go back to that store and buy more produce. Same thing with, you go to kiss someone and you find that ew, I just don't like how they kiss. You know, I've had women that I've gotten relationships with years in the past that I've always thought that I was a good kisser, and I would go and we have that first really nice kiss, and it's like, well, I'm not really used to kissing like that. Can you try kissing me this way? Now they're able to communicate what they like and what their needs are in that way through the process of communication. Then we were able to, see if we could make a shift and a change. And that's the same thing then with sex and everything else. But there's a transaction that goes on. But you don't want to lose, the next point then is you don't want to lose sight of the fact that the relationships are more important and also more powerful than the transaction until you're willing to lose the relationship in order to have the transaction as you begin to put yourself in an abundant playing field. In other words, going back to that point where I finally, in my 40s, came to a point where I simply was not willing to live the rest of my life. Sex was just too big of a deal in my life, and it's kind of funny. I meet people and chat with people all the time, and what they do is they complicate their life and have all these things that they're involved in doing. This buddy of mine, he told me that he's got this 4-wheel drive Jeep that he likes to take out camping and 4-wheeling and all that kind of stuff. And on a trip he made, I think it was 6 months ago, October, about 10, 12, 11 months ago, almost a year ago now. And but he did something that really messed up his Jeep. And so apparently that repair bill was over $10,000. And but then he has to work overtime to be able to afford to fix the thing or repair the thing, And in the meantime, he's kind of living a non-monogamous life that's a monogamous life, and that his kids and his wife and his wife is would like to live a non-monogamous life if she found a girlfriend, but she doesn't want any boyfriends. And he wants to be able to have girlfriends. And so they haven't been able to work this whole dance out yet, so that they're really living a frustrated life. And so in order to get relief from their frustration, they go out and they pour all this money and time and effort into the hobbies that make their life more complicated. Instead of just taking and putting that same energy into working this out in their relationship and deciding. I mean, they've been separated a number of times and they get back together, and instead of maybe just deciding that, hey, this is going to work for us and we're going to really work it all out, or it's not going to work out for us. And if it doesn't work out, understand that you can certainly put negative energy and negative meaning on that. A lot of people do the whole idea of divorce and ending relationships. It doesn't need to be that way. That's if you have a mindset of scarcity. And that's a mindset of scarcity that says that, oh, this has got to be the one and only, because if it's not this, then it's like, I can't possibly be happier in the future. I'm going to be miserable without this. And it's just not going to be the same. And it goes on and on and on, instead of thinking like an abundant mindset and saying, oh man, yeah, if we just decide what to do, and if it's not going to work for us, then move on, because it's not increasing my satisfaction and pleasure in life. And so let's move in a direction that does increase my satisfaction and pleasure. And there's lots of people out there for me to take and